What's going on, everyone? Hyperstatic46 here, and I know it's been a while since I last did my previous part of the What If, and I am very sorry for that. I've just been busy with school, work, a lot of stuff in my personal life has just been taking my time a lot from recording. Plus, I've also been uploading more of my Persona playthrough and my Sonic Frontiers playthrough. And like I said, I'm just really sorry that those got in the way of this one, but it's alright. I have everything down. I've got all I needed to get. I got the renders for the video, I got the images, I got everything. Alright, so let's get it just right back into it on What If Sonic and Company were in Dragon Ball Z. Just a quick recap, in the last episode, the gang ended up going to Namek to get the Namekian Dragon Ball so they can wish everybody back that were killed by the Saiyans, since, you know, the Z Fighters had just used the Dragon Balls to wish back the people killed by Raditz. While they were there on Namek, obviously, you know, the typical Namek shenanigans went down. You had Frieza and his men. Also, we had the introduction of Shadow amongst their ranks. The Ginyu Force was killed, and Tails and Amy ended up dying as well, which prompted Goku and Sonic to turn into their respective super forms and deliver the smackdown to Frieza, while also telling Dende to make the wish with the Namekian Dragon Balls to wish everybody back on planet and also have the Dragon Balls ready. So, with that out of the way, let's just get right back into the What If. After the destruction of Namek, Sonic and Goku had managed to barely fly the spaceship and crash land on an unknown planet called Yardrat. There they would make two races of aliens, the Yardratians and the Wisps. Yes, I will say, some of the Wisps, they've decided to have a little bit of a vacation on planet Yardrat. Not all of them are there. I didn't mix both planet Wisp and the Yardratian planet as well together, like how I did with Angel Island and the Lookout. So don't worry, they're two separate planets. I wasn't going to go that crazy. During the time it would take for the ship to be repaired, Sonic and Goku would train and learn new techniques from both the Yardratians and the Wisps. So for techniques, I will say instant transmission is learned, as well as a different technique one will learn from each other. Sonic would have learned how to manipulate his enemy's ki with one punch to slowly drain them of their energy from making contact, so full spirit vision, while Goku would have learned how to heal himself and others with his own energy. The Yardratians would also be able to help the boys hone in on Chaos Emerald focus training to make better use of the Emerald's power, almost allowing them to use it at full capacity. Once they learned instant transmission, they would put it to the test and use it to somehow find the home world of the Wisp, Planet Wisp. Once they would lock on into an energy signature, they would both teleport to the Wisp's home world, and there they would learn many of the Wisp's different techniques before instant transmitting back to Yardrat. So I was thinking on how to handle the Wisps here, and the best way I can think of is, in order for them to use the Wisp power, they still will need the Wisps, but unlike their other techniques, it won't really require ki, since they're more or less getting the energy and technique from an outside source. But once they returned, the ship repairs would be complete and they'd be ready to go home. Now, during the time it takes for Goku and Sonic to get back to Earth, a few things happened while they were gone. For starters, the Z Fighters used the Dragon Balls to wish back Tails and Amy, as well as the rest of the humans killed by by Nappa and Vegeta. Shadow returned with Dr. Ivo Robotnik, who was working back at his old job with Capsule Corp with Dr. Reeves, and was brought up to speed with what happened. It was a bit of a shock, but he got used to it. The government organization GUN has been established, and lastly, Knuckles has become officially the guardian of the Master Emerald. And lastly as well, the Namekian people now live on Angel Island under the protection and safety of Knuckles and Kami. I decided instead of there being new Namek, it would make more sense for them to live on Angel Island. There's plenty of water on Angel Island to be able to not only sustain the Namekian people for years to come, but the protection of not only Knuckles and Kami, as well as the Z Fighters as well. So, don't worry, they're going to be on Angel Island. This also means that there is no need for a second set of Dragon Balls as well. So there's no need for a second set of Namekian Dragon Balls. On Earth, everyone would be visited by two mysterious individuals who call themselves Silver and Trunks, who would inform them about Sonic and Goku arriving on Earth soon. Once they get to the location, they would wait for a while before seeing a large spaceship start to land in front of them. Out would step Sonic and Goku, both being able to maintain their super forms. Once everyone would be well acquainted, Trunks and Silver would pull Sonic and Goku aside and inform them on the happenings in the future about the androids and apparently a robotic version of Sonic that managed to even be able to contest with Shadow. When questioned on the robots and androids, Silver would tell them that they are extremely adaptable, even being able to somehow nullify his psychokinesis. Trunks would comment that the androids would appear in half a year from this moment in time. After telling them, Trunks would give Goku a heart medicine and Silver would give Sonic another form of medicine before getting back to their time machine and leaving. After the two left, Sonic and Goku would inform everyone of the coming android threat and that they need to train up. Now, I will say King Cold is not here, and that's for reasons I'll get into in a later what if. Because Frieza's dead. Goku and Sonic completely finished him off, as I said in the previous part. Frieza's dead. They killed him. so King Cold's not here. After the few months of training, things would start to kick off. Back in the secret laboratory, Eggman and Gero are working on their next advancements in robotics. With the battle data Eggman collected from before, he managed to create a replica of Sonic. He would boast that he could take on the Blue Rodent one for one without even trying. Dr. Gero would also unveil his android. Eggman would hold back on how he feels about 17 and 18, but would tell Gero to hold off on sending them out. The two would argue at first until Eggman would explain why. See, Eggman managed to create some prototypes of a certain black hedgehog, and would show Gero. He would claim those robots would provide backup for Metal Sonic. Gero would eye the doctor, but would agree, and that he would go with them to monitor their actions while out. With that, Metal Sonic and a few Shadow androids would be sent out along with Gero and 20 to cause destruction. While they're out causing trouble, Eggman would conduct phase 2 of his plan, as he would send out some drones to scope out the fight. While the Z Fighters would train, they would also get the alert by Tommy that there was trouble. In South City, Gero and 20 would start to destroy the area, with Metal Sonic and the Shadow androids providing a form of backup. The amount of destruction was felt by everyone. Trunks and Silver weren't kidding, these androids were no joke. Out of all the Z Fighters, Sonic, Goku, Amy, Raditz, and Vegeta would arrive on the scene, with Shadow and the others staying behind to train while the others fight. When Sonic and the rest arrived on the scene, they were shocked. It was the androids, but they were here before Trunks and Silver said. This was a problem, and it had to be dealt with as quickly as possible. Sonic would lock eyes with Metal Sonic, and almost as if on cue, they both raced off. Amy would combat the Shadow androids, while Goku, Vegeta, and Raditz faced off against Gero and 20. Sonic couldn't believe what he was facing. Metal Sonic was unreal. He was matching him, blow for blow, speed for speed. It was like they were almost perfectly in sync with each other. Every time Sonic would throw a punch, Metal would match his punch. Every kick was matched with another kick. Realizing he had no choice, Sonic would power up into his super form and fly at Metal Sonic, who wasn't ready. Metal Sonic barely managed to latch onto Sonic, who went flying through him. Sonic started to feel weaker before noticing some weird button-like objects on his hands. Metal Sonic was starting to drain his energy and he needed to get him off him, but he just couldn't shake him. Amy nearby watching this flung her hammer at Sonic, telling him heads up. Sonic saw the incoming projectile and turned his back so it smashed Metal Sonic, knocking him off. Sonic would also inform everyone that the androids can absorb their energy, so they need to watch out. Goku would acknowledge this and reinforce this with Raditz and Vegeta before taking on 20. With the efforts of Super Saiyan Goku, Raditz, and Vegeta, they would take care of 19 with ease, making sure to bisect his arms from the rest of his body, just in case. While Amy fought against the Shadow androids, she would get pushed back at first, but before anyone offered to help her, she would give a smirk telling them to leave this to her. Everyone felt her power spike as she yelled out, Kaioken. Her demeanor and aura changed. She was now faster and stronger. Within a few minutes, the Shadow androids were reduced to scraps and pieces, causing Gero to hurry away back to his secret lab, with everyone giving chase. Though they did find it weird, Trunks and Silver detailed the androids differently. They got the Sonic one right, but made him out to be a lot stronger. Not to mention, they never told them about any form of a Shadow android. Around this time, Gun would show up with their soldiers and weapons, but they wouldn't be able to help much against the androids or any other threat that's about to come their way. Gero would communicate with Eggman to activate the rest of the androids and send them his way. Eggman would activate the rest of the androids, as well as what he was working on in secret, and send them towards the pursuing adversaries. Before long, Sonic and company would come face to face with the androids and... Shadow? No, something looked different. This one had a different look in his eye. Whereas the Shadow they know had a look of determination and justice, this one had a look of hatred. Sonic would fly at Shadow, who flew at him and locked hands with his. Sonic would notice, though, at least this Shadow didn't have the energy-draining buttons on his hands. Super Sonic would start to overpower Shadow, who struggled at first, but then detached his inhibitor rings to fully awaken his power. Amy would rush in to assist, but would get blindsided by Android 18, who would call Amy out on her weakness. Goku would still try to go after Gero, but would be intercepted by Android 16 and knocked aside. Vegeta would tell Raditz to stay out of his way and that he can handle this android by himself. The android would smirk, calling Vegeta a pompous ass before engaging the fight. Back at the lab, Gero would emerge and begin to question Eggman on why he never told him about that hedgehog he sent with the android. Eggman would comment that Gero was busy with his androids and that he didn't want to bother him with anything else. Not to mention, he wasn't the only one keeping secrets, telling him that he knows about the sublab and what's in it. Gero would glare at Eggman, who gave a smirk, telling him not to worry. Their goals are still aligned. They want to get rid of the interlopers who made a fool of them in the Red Ribbon Army years ago. Eggman would then wheel in another Metal Sonic, though this one's design seemed more alike to Sonic, aside from the legs and hands. Meanwhile, back at the fight, Super Sonic was getting thrown around by Chaos Shadow. He was relentless, not giving Sonic a second to breathe, and making sure he wasn't receiving any assistance from anyone. Anytime Goku or the others would attempt to assist Sonic, they would either get knocked away by the androids or kept away by Shadow. Within a matter of minutes, Sonic was knocked out of his super form and slammed into the ground, with Shadow looming over him. He was put his hands up before feeling Shadow stomp on his chest, pointing a hand at him. Shadow would glare at Sonic and his hand glowed before telling Sonic to die. Before he could blast him, everyone heard a loud yell from the distance telling them it's no use. Shadow felt himself picked up and thrown before locking eyes with a silver hedgehog flying in, with a boy right behind him. Sonic would give a slight smile seeing Silver before passing out. The androids would look to Shadow, who was already flying at Silver and Trunks. Goku and 16 would match punch for punch, but Goku would slowly push 16 back. Vegeta would try his best to fight Android 17, but ultimately he's just too much for him to handle, even with the assistance of Raditz. Trunks would try to help, but Shadow would stop him. Silver would freeze up for a moment, staring at Shadow, who would use his opportunity to gut punch him and kick him away. Trunks would immediately use his sword to fight Shadow, who would easily break it and knock Trunks aside. Shadow would start to feel a little weak, then very weak. Before he could realize what was happening to him, Sonic flew up and kicked him to the ground. Shadow would slowly stand and collect his inhibitor rings before teleporting away. Amy would be able to fend off 18's onslaught of attacks for a while before realizing that she needs to further increase her strength. Amy would yell Kaioken ×4 before delivering a strong punch to 18, knocking her to the ground and charging a Chaos Spear, before launching it at the downed Cyborg. 17 would knock both Raditz and Vegeta away before swooping in and putting a barrier around 18, telling her they need to get away. Android 16 would create a bright flash of ki before they were gone. Now, quick side note, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of questions about this in the comments, but let me just knock these out just right now, so that way it just covers the bases. The Kaioken will still hurt Amy in this sense. I can already feel the comments asking, wait, wouldn't the Kaioken just hurt Amy because of the drawbacks of the Kaioken? Yes, and she is about to feel the burn, as you could say. And as for the Sonic getting knocked out, he was just faking it. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a big question too. Just wait, didn't you just say that Sonic was knocked out? Yes, but he was faking it. As Z fighters tend to sometimes fake when they're actually hurt and fake whenever they're actually KO'd. Don't worry, I covered my ass on this one. Back at the lookout, Sonic and Goku would instant transmit everyone back and comment what all happened. That there were 2 Shadows, and there are now 4 androids. But they did manage to destroy a Sonic android and brought him back along with shards of his memory and power. Tails would take the pieces of the late Metal Sonic and head to Capsule Corp while everyone else figures out what to do. This is where Kami would tell everyone about the Realm of Spirit and Time, and that they can do a year's worth of training in a day, but only 2 can go in at a time. When everyone started to pair off to go in, Goku would offer to take Gohan, but was stopped by Knuckles, who instead offered to take Gohan in. Goku would think it over, then ultimately accept this, telling Gohan not to worry and that he's in good hands. Tien would pair up with Krillin, Sonic would pair up with Amy, Shadow with Silver, Goku with Raditz, and Vegeta with Trunks. So, who's going in first? Well, seeing as those super forms are a must if they want to stand a bit of a chance, it would be best if neither Sonic nor Goku went in the chamber first. With a groan, Vegeta dragged Trunks into the chamber with him and began to train while everyone else kept watch on what the androids were doing. After their escape, 16, 17, and 18 would continue as they normally did in canon, not so much as fighting for Gero or the Red Ribbon Army, but just causing trouble because they can. Meanwhile, another time traveler would be lurking, following in their trail alongside another traveler with it. While Vegeta and Trunks train, everyone on the outside would train to earn their respective super forms. Silver at first would have his reserves about training against Shadow, but realizing that now is not the time to let his feelings get in the way, he's willing to put it aside to save the future. Sonic is more than happy to go toe-to-toe with Shadow, ever since their last fight on Namek. Amy would join him as well, commenting that while she was dead, she learned a few moves and techniques from someone by the name of King Kai. Sonic would more than allow her to spar with them, telling her not to hold back. Everyone would watch in awe as the four hedgehogs showed off their multiple techniques, Silver catching Shadow midair and throwing him to the ground, not only to get launched away by Sonic, who could counter oncoming punches by Amy. Even he had to admit, she was stronger than he expected. He had gotten used to his super form, but Amy was even more used to this Kaioken maneuver. Goku would watch, getting excited, saying he wants to take on both Sonic and Amy. Both hedgehogs seemed confused at first, but agreed, going at Goku full force. Just before anything could happen, everyone would freeze, sensing a whole massive key signature spike, then settle. This wasn't the androids, but something different. Sonic would smirk, saying it's probably that Shadow copy. He would shoot a look at Shadow, who would nod and fly up to meet him. Everyone else would stay behind while they flew off toward the energy signature. Once they arrived at the site, they were shocked to witness what they saw. Multiple bodies, drained completely dry. Once they touched the ground, they heard the footsteps approaching them before stopping. When they looked at the source of those steps, they saw a weird green bug creature and another Sonic robot copy. The bug creature introduced himself as Cell, and the robot would introduce himself as Metal Sonic, the real Sonic. Sonic and Shadow would waste no time engaging the two, who did the same. Back on the lookout, Kami would inform everyone of what's going on and assure everyone that the boys have everything under control. During the fight, Sonic would manage to land multiple hits on Metal Sonic, but they did nothing. Even Supersonic Wind Attack didn't even scratch him. Shadow, on the other hand, wasn't having a much more comfortable time fighting against Metal Sonic. No matter what Cell did, he couldn't catch a clean opening. Shadow was just too fast, or would leave an open counterattack. Cell would comment to Metal Sonic that they need to retreat and find the androids, with Metal Sonic agreeing. In a last-ditch effort, Cell would fly up and temporarily blind Sonic and Shadow with a solar flare before leaving with Metal Sonic. Sonic would instant transmit himself and Shadow back to the lookout and wait for Trunks and Vegeta to come out. Once they do, Vegeta would brag about how he and Trunks unlocked Super Saiyan, and that Goku would soon fall behind him in power. Seeing that there are 2 more Super Saiyans, Sonic would take Amy into the hyperbolic time chamber and would train next, allowing everyone to question Silver and Trunks on the future and why they were wrong about the android. The boys would correct everyone, stating that the androids they were talking about were 17 and 18, not to mention Metal Sonic. They never knew about a Shadow copy or Android 16 and Gero. Those 3 never popped up in their timeline. Shadow would clench his fist, stating that it took him a long time before he realized what his true purpose is. That was only because of Dr. Gerald Robotnik and what he wanted for the world. This Shadow couldn't be reasoned with. When also questioned on who was alive in the future, Trunks would say most of the Z Fighters died, with the exception of Gohan, Shadow, and Amy. Goku had died to the heart virus, while Sonic was killed by his metallic look-alike. The rest of the androids killed everyone else, but Shadow and Gohan managed to fend them off. When further questioned, Silver would comment that the Master Emerald would have also been shattered and the emeralds disappeared, so the androids nor Metal Sonic could use them. With this, there was only so much that the Resistance could do. In the time chamber, Amy would teach Sonic Kaioken, while Sonic would assist in teaching her how to hone in her ki to achieve a super form like him. It would be difficult in the beginning, so for now, Amy would just stick to Kaioken. And besides, maybe if she can take Sonic on without a super form, he might start to like her. Back on the outside, Kami is monitoring the androids and a new threat of Cell, and keeping everyone up to speed. The situation is becoming dire. The androids, the new Metal Sonic, the Shadow copy, and this Cell guy who was also after the androids for some reason. Back with the androids, they're still going on their own since they don't follow Gero and don't really plan on following his orders. Plus, with the inclusion of the new Shadow, they get into some more trouble, which grabs the attention of Cell. Vegeta and Trunks would fly down to meet the androids joined by Shadow and Silver, who could sense the other Shadow. Once they arrived, the Shadows would immediately begin to fight, calling the other one a faker. Things here would go just about the same as they were in canon. Vegeta would get beaten by 18 and have his arm broken. Trunks would get stomped by 17, and Silver would do his best against 16, but with the Shadow handling his counterpart, 17 and 18 would be more than enough to beat him. With the Shadows, I will say that Z-Fighter Shadow will have beaten his counterpart, and here's why. Our Shadow, the good or anti-hero Shadow, depending on what you want to go off of, has went through some growth as well as keeping up with training. Not to mention, he was made using better technology, that being the technology from the Black Arms and the Frieza Force. So with this fight, the original Shadow would be more than enough to beat his counterpart, but when it would come to killing him, he would hesitate. He's been in this same position before, except he was given the opportunity to be shown his true purpose. Maybe this one can be the same way. Instead of killing the other Shadow, a hand would be extended to him. Before that hand could be met, Shadow would get knocked away by 17, who would grab the other Shadow and flee the scene with 16 and 18 following in tow. After a crushing defeat, Goku would instant transmit to the group and give each of them a ring to help heal them up, before getting everyone back to the lookout. With Cell and Metal Sonic, they would have sensed powers clashing and fly towards them, arriving minutes after Goku had already left. Cell knew they were getting closer. They were on the verge of locating the androids, and just needed to figure out where they were headed. Back at the lookout, Sonic and Amy would emerge looking visibly damaged, as they had pushed each other to their limits and beyond. After they came out, Shadow and Silver would go in next, while Goku and the rest would rest up and wait for the androids to show themselves again. Inside the time chamber, Silver and Shadow would undergo rigorous training to try to achieve their respective super forms, while making sure to hone in their speed and strength. While I don't think Silver will be much of a physical fighter, he does make up for it with his psychokinesis. With enough focus, Shadow would obtain a super form, but Silver wouldn't. Something is holding him back, and he doesn't know what. With a frustrated attitude, he would mainly focus on new techniques. Outside of the time chamber, Goku and Sonic would simultaneously sense more chaos going on, and grab Amy and Raditz, telling Tien and Krillin to stay and watch over Trunks and Vegeta before instant transmitting to the commotion. There, it's as they feared. Cell and Metal Sonic had found the androids while Shadow was still weakened. Cell and Metal would attack the androids, with Sonic and the rest trying their best to keep them away. Seeing a temporary alliance, the androids wouldn't attack Sonic and Goku, seeing as they were fighting this Bugman thing and this robotic ally. From here, one of the worst things happened. When Cell would attempt to absorb one of the androids, he would instead absorb the Shadow copy. When 17 would attempt to move out of the way. From here, Cell would start to change. His color shifted a bit, and his powers spiked. His eyes would lock on the androids, telling them to make this easy and let them become one. With quick thinking, Sonic would grab 18, while Goku would grab 17, and instant transmit away in different directions, with Amy and Raditz getting away with them. Cell would begin searching for the androids once more, but this time, he has a whole new reservoir of energy in his pocket. Sonic would tell Amy to hide with 18, while he draws Cell away from them. Amy would nod, and Sonic would spike his key and instant transmit far away from them. Likewise, Goku would do the same, telling Raditz to stay with 17 and keep under the radar. Meanwhile, Metal Sonic would make his way to the lab, where he would encounter Gero and Eggman. Once they noticed him, he would kill off Gero, stating that his mission was complete. When Eggman would question Metal Sonic, he would state that in the future, when he was created, his prime directive was to eliminate all opposition to the Eggman Empire. Eggman would seem shocked at first, but gain a smirk, telling Metal Sonic good job, then turn his attention to the sub-lab. Cell would continue his search for the androids, though he would fly toward the raising key signature, recognizing it as Sonic. With 16 hot on his tail, Cell would stop to fight the pursuing android. Sonic would sense this and instant transmit over, with Goku there to help. During the ensuing fight, 16 would grab Cell and tell everyone to get away before detonating himself. Unfortunately, Cell would survive, and go after Sonic and Goku, who would be ready for him. After a few seconds, everyone would feel incoming key signatures. When they would look, they would see Trunks and Vegeta ready to fight. Cell would smirk, taking them all on, bragging on how he absorbed the ultimate life form, and once he becomes perfect, there will be no being alive that will be able to stop him. Everyone would try their best, barely managing to scratch Cell. On the lookout, Silver and Shadow would just be exiting the time chamber and immediately sense what's going on. Kame would bring them up to speed that the Shadow copy got absorbed, and that the androids were hiding with Raditz and Amy, while the others are trying to fight Cell. Silver and Shadow would fly out to assist, while Tien and Krillin are next to head in, but not before being handed a bag of rings. Cell is too much for everyone present. Even with the boost of the Shadow copy, not to mention his adaptability, Cell would overwhelm everyone. With the current Z fighters taken down, Cell would set his sights on finding the androids again. With careful sensing, he would lock onto Raditz and fly away. When he does, Silver and Shadow would arrive minutes after, to which Goku would tell them what happened and that they can't let Cell get away. Shadow would nod, then look to Silver, telling him that there's no time to waste and they need to hurry off. They would do so, but not before handing some rings to everyone else. Back with Cell, he would arrive at the location where 17 and Raditz were hiding. Thankfully, Raditz picked a good place. It's deep in the canyons where there are no clear sight lines. Cell would call out to 17, telling him not to make this difficult. He would then begin to blast the area to draw them out, before getting hit with a Chaos Spear from a distance. When he would look, he would notice Shadow and Silver flying at him in full force. Cell would be confused. Didn't he just absorb Shadow? Doesn't matter. If there was more than one, he'll just absorb this one again and gain even more power. Cell would put his hands out ready to shoot them, but would then see his arms move without his consent. Silver would slowly use his psychokinesis to hold Cell's arm in place, while Shadow would transform into his super form, delivering a strong roundhouse to Cell's jaw, knocking him away and into the ground. Silver would then use this opportunity to shoot multiple key spears into the ground and fly at Cell, lifting a large rock formation and dropping it on him. Watching this, Raditz would tell 17 that now's the time for them to get away while the others keep Cell busy. 17 would agree, and both of them would fly off, only to encounter Metal Sonic, who would knock Raditz away and keep 17 restrained, long enough for Cell to notice. Once he does, Cell would go for Metal Sonic, but will only get restrained again by Silver. Shadow would look between 17 and Cell, and decide that it's best to allow 17 to escape, while Silver holds Cell. Metal Sonic would notice and throw 17 away before engaging Shadow, before stating that all Ultimate Lifeform data has been copied. Shadow would deliver a punch to Metal Sonic, who would manage to grab, then throw Shadow to the ground before aiming at Silver and blasting him with a stray key shot. Once it hits, Silver will lose control of Cell, who would manage to catch 17 and absorb him, transforming into a second form. Metal Sonic would comment to Cell that he knows the location of Amy Rose, explaining that she is currently with Cyborg 18. Once Shadow recovers, he would see both time travelers fly off before checking on Silver and Raditz, who would be okay, but still each use a ring, just in case. Back with 18 and Amy, both are flying toward a set of small islands, where they decide to hide. There, they would have a moment to talk, when 18 questions on why Amy is helping her. Amy would comment that while this doesn't make them friends, it's better than dealing with whatever Cell is and wants with them. They know Cell is their enemy because he's working with Metal Sonic, who they already established was their foe. But when Amy asked about 18 and Cell, 18 would mention that while she and her brother 17 were made cyborgs by the Red Ribbon Army, they don't exactly care much for Gero or the Double R. They just want to do their own thing, and that if given the chance, they probably would have killed Gero themselves if the Z-Fighters hadn't shown up. Amy would also ask, does that mean that they aren't evil, to which 18 would reply that while they aren't evil by any stretch of the imagination, that doesn't mean they wouldn't use what they have to get what they want. So far, the only crime or damage they've committed is stealing a van and shoplifting. Around here is when Cell would arrive, and just like in canon, he would start blasting each island to flush out 18. By the time he figures out, Sonic, Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks would just be arriving. Without hesitation, Goku would charge up a Kamehameha, while Vegeta fires a Gallic Gun. Cell would prepare to take the hit, but Metal Sonic would jump in front and punch the oncoming beams to the ground. When he does this, Goku would fire his Kamehameha, only for Metal to put both hands up to catch it and push it back. Sonic would fly towards Cell, who would instead fly up and use a solar flare to blind everyone. Using this opportunity, he would absorb 18 and begin to transform. When everyone would gain their sight back, they would look in shock as Cell looked completely different from what he looked like a few seconds ago. Cell would begin to chuckle and start to laugh. He won. He achieved his perfect form, and they couldn't stop him. But instead of killing everyone here outright, Cell would announce the Cell Games to further prove that no one could beat him. He would host a tournament that holds the entire world's fate in the hands of any fighters that want to challenge him. He would instant transmit away, leaving everyone present to process what just happened, before heading back to the lookout. When they got back, Everyone would take this moment to begin training their hardest. Super Saiyan, Super Hedgehog was barely enough to go against Cell in his imperfect form. Now that he's reached perfection, there would need to be a level of strength beyond what they already know. During this time, Krillin and Tien would come out and be brought up to speed on what happened while they were gone. During this time, Knuckles would bring Gohan into the time chamber while everyone who has a super form would work on trying to either maintain it without strain or try to achieve a higher level of power with it. On their way in, Knuckles would take the Chaos Emeralds with them, reassuring everyone that he will bring them back once training is done. Once they are in, Knuckles would begin by teaching Gohan to draw onto his power from within and have control over it. He would often have Gohan meditate with the emeralds, and as a symbol of training, Knuckles would test Gohan by scattering the emeralds throughout the time chamber and have him call them back time after time. Gohan would fail once, twice, a couple times after, until he got it right. Knuckles would then use the rest of the time they had to train to help Gohan achieve his super form and maintain it without any strain on his body, as well as teach him any special techniques he knows. Finally, the time would come for the Cell games to commence. I will say, everyone would manage to take on Cell, but at the time when the Cell games would have commenced, Gohan and Knuckles would still be in the time chamber, leaving the group without the Chaos Emeralds in his match against Cell. Goku would show off Super Saiyan 2, and would come close to pushing Cell out of the ring, but unfortunately to no avail. After realizing what needs to happen, Goku would then try to stall long enough for Gohan and Knuckles to come out. Unfortunately, Cell isn't here to play games. Haha, he's here to fight. Goku would get knocked out, and next would be Vegeta. Goku would tell Vegeta that if he can't beat Cell, to stall the fight long enough for Gohan to arrive, which the Prince would scoff and respond that he doesn't take orders from a low-class Saiyan. He would defeat Cell here and kill him in this ring. Sonic Company would watch as Vegeta would go into Super Saiyan Grade 2 and begin to attack Cell relentlessly. Cell would be worried at first, but then would begin to laugh as he realized that even Vegeta can't beat him. Now all he had to do was worry about Sonic and Shadow, and then he would destroy Earth and become the strongest being in the universe. Before long, Cell would swiftly knock Vegeta out of the ring, then look at Sonic and Shadow. Sonic would step forward, but Shadow would stop him. He'd step up, telling Cell that he would beat him and get his other self out of him, to which Cell would laugh and tell him to bring it on, but before he does, he wants this to be a submission battle. Fight against the ultimate life form would be uninteresting if either lost by ring out. In a matter of seconds, Cell would destroy the arena, saying that there would be no more out of bounds, to which Shadow would give a smirk. Without hesitation, Shadow would take off his inhibitor rings and fly at Cell, who would fly at him. Both would go crazy, trading blow for blow, neither seeming phased or tired from the vicious onslaught. During the fight, Shadow would transform into his super form with his chaos energy unleashed, causing everyone in the area to feel the surge of energy. Cell would be caught off guard. He knew Shadow was strong, but who knew he was hiding this power? Shadow, who would jump back and shoot multiple chaos spheres before teleporting behind Cell and kicking him into it. Cell would take the blast and smirk as his wounds seemingly healed themselves. Shadow would let out an annoyed growl, and Cell would feel the full might of his power. Cell would laugh as his energy began to surge as well. He assumed a chaos-like form and managed to overpower Shadow, who didn't know what to do. Cell would begin countering Shadow's attacks and pummeled him to the ground, prompting Sonic to assume his super form and rush in to assist. Back at the lookout, Knuckles and Gohan would emerge, with Kami informing them that the Cell games were going on. They need to get down there now. Quickly, Gohan would fly off with Knuckles right behind him, Chaos Emeralds in tow. Sonic would have caught Cell off guard and knocked him away from Shadow, giving the downed Hedgehog a ring before telling Cell that it's time he faced him. Cell would give Sonic an annoyed look, seeing how his match was interrupted. He would comment that Shadow is leagues stronger than Sonic and that the Blue Rat wouldn't stand a chance. Sonic would shake his head before telling Cell that he would defeat him here and now. Cell would rush Sonic, making sure he couldn't get any clean shots that were left open. Unfortunately for him, Sonic was hoping that he'd take the bait. When Cell would go in for a gut punch, Sonic would spin to the side and kick him across the face before mocking him by waving his finger in a condescending way. Cell would notice himself start to feel weak, and before long, he dropped to the ground, gagging before letting out a guttural sound, as the shadow from before was vomited out his mouth. Sonic would nod. Guess that technique worked wonders. Now it's time to finish Cell off. He would fly in, drawing his fist back before feeling a beam pierce his chest. Gohan and Knuckles had just arrived to see Sonic get hit with a beam by Cell and fall to the ground. Cell would stand up and slowly begin to regain his strength before walking over to Sonic, who was gagging on the ground. Just as Cell was about to finish him off, Knuckles would rush in and deliver a strong punch to Cell, knocking him away. He would then try to get Sonic and the two Shadows away with assistance from Trunks and Silver, but Cell would appear in front of him and knock him away. Knuckles would slowly start to get up before being stepped on by Cell. He would start to power up, but Cell would have none of it by stomping on him again. Knuckles would look at Gohan and smile, telling Gohan that he needs to unleash his true power, to not let this monster win, to protect all life and ensure a safe future for all.
It's okay, Gohan. It's okay to be afraid. It's alright to want to appeal to everyone's humanity. It's alright to be a pacifist. But right now, there is no humanity in this monster. There is no appealing to him. The only way for a better future to be achieved is if you do what is needed to be done. Unleash your power, Gohan, and put Cell where he belongs. I believe in you. I have hope, Gohan.
With those last words, Cell would shoot a beam at Knuckles, killing him almost instantly, then followed up with shooting a blast at Sonic, who couldn't muster up the strength to defend himself. Gohan stared, speechless, for a second. Then from within him, something snapped. He would let out an angered scream as his power shot through the roof. Vegeta, Goku, the Shadows, and everyone else watching would see Gohan's hair flare up into the signature Super Saiyan style, but his hair started to turn white. Goku would notice the Chaos Emerald starting to grow in size as Gohan let out another angered yell, his ki seemingly unstable. It was soon followed up by two other angered yells. Amy, who had just watched the hedgehog she had feelings for die right in front of her, not being able to do anything about it, went into her Kaioken form. And Silver, who considered himself the weakest one, tried to help Sonic and Knuckles, but to no avail. Maybe if he was stronger, maybe if he had the chance to make it right, maybe if he could beat Cell here. Amy's aura turned red, then to a silverish pink, as Silver's aura matched Gohan's. Cell would laugh, taunting the three hedgehogs. Everyone else watching would back off and fly to a safe location to watch. A new form achieved by the three, the Hyper form, only achievable by using the power of the 7 Super Emeralds. Cell would power up from the newly transformed emeralds as Hyper Amy would grab him by his tail and begin flinging him around, slamming him into the ground, then throwing him away. Cell would growl and turn his attention to Amy and ready 2 Destructo Discs before throwing them at her. Right as when it would seemingly hit her, they stopped short. Hyper Silver would land in front of Amy and glare at Cell before waving his hands as the 2 discs flew back at Cell, who would fly up to dodge, but Silver wouldn't let him off that easy. He began making them follow Cell's every move until he'd be forced to blast them away with some Ki Blast. He would then focus on Silver and prepare a Kamehameha. Silver would land slowly and wait. Cell would fire at him, which Silver would hold his hand up to stop it just shy of him. Gohan would slowly walk up and ready a Kamehameha and counter Cell's, pushing him back. When Cell would narrowly escape that, Silver would hold him in place, telling Cell that he has a few things that don't belong to him. Gohan would fly over to the restrained Cell and deliver gut punch after gut punch until Cell spit up androids 17 and 18, causing him to revert back into his first form. After which, Gohan, Amy, Silver, they all readied their Hyper Kamehamehas and blasted Cell with it, making sure there was nothing left. I will say from here, Cell's completely destroyed. Nucleus is completely eviscerated. I believe that Cell could have taken just a regular Kamehameha in first form by just a Super Saiyan Goku, or Super Saiyan Gohan, but 3 hyper-formed hedgehogs with a Hyper Kamehameha against first form Cell, there's nothing that's going to withstand that. Cell was erased on impact. After the smoke had cleared, everyone would begin to mourn for the deaths of Sonic and Knuckles, before realizing that, oh yeah, we have Dragon Balls, and Chaos Emeralds as well. We should be able to get them in relatively quick time. Again, death has no consequence in the Dragon Ball universe. I need to keep that in mind. So yeah, that was the end of Cell. And considering the fact that you could also use the Dragon Balls to wish the bombs out of 17 and 18, I will say that while they don't show appreciation deep down, they are pretty happy that, hey, we got bombs out of our chest. So, yep, that's the end of the Cell Saga. I know there were a lot of things that shouldn't have happened the way that they did, but given certain characters and certain occurrences going on, I feel like would have been what was going to happen. It was destined to have Perfect Cell, and with a second Shadow, Perfect Cell, the ultimate life form, was bound to make an appearance. I'm pretty sure we were all thinking about it at some point. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. As always, I'm HyperShark46. Keep a lookout for those 7 Chaos Rangers. Chaos, control the like button, and I will see you all later. Thank you, and I'm going to get immediately on work, part 4. Please, like my video. Please, I love doing this.